The bustling cafe on Elm Street hummed with the usual Saturday morning chatter-laughter from young couples, the clink of coffee cups, and the distant whir of the espresso machine. But everything shifted when Eleanor Whitaker, frail yet poised at 88, shuffled in with her worn cane tapping softly against the tiled floor. She paused at the counter, her voice barely above a whisper as she asked the barista for a simple pen, her eyes shimmering with an urgency that silenced the room in an instant. No one knew then that this request would unravel a lifetime of hidden sorrows and joys, drawing strangers into a web of shared humanity. Eleanor settled into a corner table, her hands trembling as she pulled out a crumpled napkin from her purse. With the borrowed pen in hand, she began to write, her strokes deliberate and heavy, as if each word carried the weight of decades unspoken. The barista, a 20-something named Mia, couldn't help but glance over while wiping down the counter. Eleanor looked like any other elderly patron at first, silver hair pinned back, a faded cardigan draped over her shoulders, and glasses perched on the tip of her nose. But there was something in her focus, a quiet intensity that made Mia pause. "Need some paper, ma'am?" Mia offered, sliding a fresh notepad across the table. Eleanor looked up, her blue eyes misty, and nodded gratefully. "Thank you, dear. This napkin won't do for what I have to say." As the minutes ticked by, the cafe's patrons began to notice. A young mother with her toddler hushed her child, intrigued by the old woman's absorption. A businessman on his laptop stole glances, his emails forgotten. Eleanor wrote steadily, page after page, her face alternating between soft smiles and furrowed brows. Whispers spread. What's she writing? A letter? Her will. But no one dared interrupt. The air grew thick with unspoken curiosity. Eleanor's mind raced back to her youth, the words flowing like a dam finally breaking. She wrote of growing up in a small Midwest town during the Great Depression, where hope was as scarce as food on the table. Her father, a factory worker, had lost his job, forcing Eleanor to quit school at 14 to help her mother sew dresses for pennies. "We survived on love and laughter," she penned, even when the nights were cold and empty. But beneath the resilience lay deeper scars, the loss of her little brother to pneumonia, a wound that never fully healed. She paused, sipping her black tea, now lukewarm. The cafe's aroma of fresh pastries mingled with the faint scent of rain outside, mirroring the storm brewing in her memories. Eleanor continued, describing how she met Harold at a church dance in 1942, just before he shipped off to war. He was tall, with a grin that lit up the room, and they danced under strung lights to Glenn Miller tunes. "He promised he'd come back," she wrote, "and seal our love with a ring." But the war had other plans. Harold's letters stopped after D-Day, and Eleanor received the dreaded telegram months later. Tears welled as she recalled the emptiness that followed. She threw herself into work at a munitions factory, where women's hands built the tools of victory while their hearts shattered in silence. Post-war, she married a kind man named George, a veteran himself, and they built a life. 2 children, a modest home, grandchildren who visited sporadically. But George passed 10 years ago, leaving her alone in a world that moved too fast. "I've carried Harold's ghost all these years," she confessed on the page, wondering if he ever thought of me in his final moments. By now, Mia had abandoned her duties, hovering nearby with a fresh cup of tea. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. Eleanor looked up, her voice cracking. "I'm writing my story, dear. Before it's too late." Mia nodded, touched by the vulnerability. Other patrons edged closer. A retired teacher named Mr. Jenkins pulled up a chair uninvited. "Mind if I read a bit?" he asked gently. Eleanor hesitated, then slid the notepad over. As he scanned the words, his eyes widened, and he cleared his throat to hide a lump. The story spread like wildfire. Mr. Jenkins read aloud a passage about Eleanor's wedding day to George, how she wore a simple white dress mended from old curtains, vowing to love again despite the ache. "Life doesn't stop for broken hearts," she had written. "It demands we mend them and keep going." A young couple at the next table listened, the woman dabbing her eyes. The businessman closed his laptop entirely, drawn into the narrative. Eleanor wrote on, delving into motherhood, the joy of her son's first steps, the terror when her daughter fell ill with polio. She described the civil rights marches she joined in the 1960s, standing arm in arm with strangers for a better world. Age doesn't dim the fire for justice, she noted. But woven through it all was a thread of regret. The letters from Harold she never opened fully, tucked away in an attic box, fearing they held too much pain. As the first hour passed, the cafe transformed. Patrons shared their own snippets of veteran recalling lost comrades, a single mother speaking of absent fathers. Eleanor listened, her pen pausing, absorbing their stories as extensions of her own. Mia, wiping tears, confessed her dream of becoming a writer but fearing rejection. "Your words inspire me," she said. Eleanor smiled. "Then write, child. Don't wait like I did." The pages filled, each one a testament to endurance. Eleanor recounted her grandchildren's births, the pride in their achievements, yet the sorrow of their busy lives leaving her isolated. "In my twilight, I crave connection," she wrote. A simple touch, a shared memory. The room grew quieter, the weight of her honesty pressing on hearts. Suddenly, a young man in the back, who had been quietly sipping his latte, stood up. He was in his 30s, with a beard and kind eyes, unnoticed until now. "Grandma," he whispered, approaching hesitantly. Eleanor's head snapped up, recognition dawning. It was her grandson, Alex, whom she hadn't seen in years after a family rift. He had wandered into the cafe by chance, drawn by the crowd. Tears streamed down Eleanor's face as Alex knelt beside her. "I didn't know. I came to town for work, but seeing you here." He trailed off, embracing her. The cafe erupted in soft sobs, strangers witnessing a reunion that echoed their own longings for forgiveness. Eleanor handed him the notepad. "Read it, Alex. It's for all of us." As he did, his voice broke, sharing her words with the room. The Kitchener, the twists of fate, the unyielding human spirit, it all poured out, binding them in collective emotion. But there was more to tell, layers yet uncovered in Eleanor's tale. The revelation of Alex's presence sent ripples through the cafe, amplifying the emotional tide. Eleanor clutched her grandson's hand, her frail fingers intertwining with his stronger ones, as if anchoring herself to the present amid the flood of past. "How did you find me?" she asked, her voice a mix of joy and disbelief. Alex explained he had been traveling for a job interview, stopping for coffee on a whim, never expecting this serendipitous encounter. As the crowd settled into a hushed reverence, Eleanor resumed writing, now with Alex by her side. She delved deeper into the family schism that had driven him away, a misunderstanding over inheritance after George's death, fueled by Eleanor's daughter's resentment. "Words unspoken fester like wounds," she penned, glancing at Alex with regret. He nodded, admitting his part in the silence. "I should have called, Grandma. Life got in the way, work, my own family starting." Mia, sensing the moment's intimacy, brought over plates of warm scones, a small gesture of comfort. Other patrons shared stories to bridge the gap. Mr. Jenkins spoke of reconciling with his estranged son after decades, urging Alex to seize the chance. The young mother added how she visited her own grandmother weekly, cherishing the tales that shaped her. Eleanor's narrative shifted to the post-war years, painting vivid pictures of rebuilding. She wrote of moving to the city, George working as a mechanic while she took night classes to become a nurse. "Healing others mended me," she reflected. Their home buzzed with life dinner parties, children's laughter, holidays filled with homemade pies. But beneath the facade lingered Harold's shadow. Eleanor confessed to dreaming of him, wondering about the life unlived. A twist emerged when Eleanor revealed a secret artifact. From her purse, she pulled a yellowed envelope, Harold's last letter, unopened for 70 years. "I couldn't bear it," she admitted. The cafe held its breath as Alex gently opened it, reading aloud. Harold's words poured out professions of eternal love, descriptions of the beaches of Normandy, a plea for her to move on if he didn't return. "Live fully, my Ellie," he had written. "Find joy again." Sobs echoed. The businessman, revealed as a history buff, shared how such letters were lifelines in war. The emotional weight deepened, highlighting themes of sacrifice and resilience. Eleanor wrote on, incorporating Harold's words into her story, weaving them as a bridge between past and present. As afternoon light filtered through the windows, the gathering evolved into a communal sharing. A teenage girl, previously absorbed in her phone, put it down to recount her grandfather's Alzheimer's battle, drawing parallels to Eleanor's memory-keeping. Eleanor encouraged her, Write his stories down. They live on through you. Alex contributed, sharing how Eleanor's influence shaped him her bedtime tales of perseverance, inspiring his career in social work. You taught me empathy, he said, voice thick. But another layer unfolded. Alex confessed he had a daughter, Eleanor's great-grandchild, whom she had never met due to the rift. Her name is Ellie, after you, he revealed, pulling out a photo. Eleanor's eyes lit up, tears flowing freely as she traced the child's face. The cafe owner, overhearing, dimmed the lights slightly, creating an intimate atmosphere. Patrons passed tissues, their own lives reflected in Eleanor's mirror. She continued chronicling the civil unrest of the 1970s, nursing wounded protesters, the joy of her children's weddings, the quiet grief of burying friends. A surprising twist came from an unlikely source. The young couple, inspired, announced they were expecting and had been fearing parenthood. Eleanor's words gave them hope. Every generation builds on the last, she wrote. Embrace the unknown with love. Hours blurred, the notepad nearly full. Eleanor described her recent loneliness, days blending in assisted living, visits rare. But today, in this cafe, I found family in strangers, she added, looking around gratefully. Mia, moved, suggested compiling the writings into a book. Your story could touch thousands. Eleanor smiled humbly. If it helps one soul feel less alone, that's enough. As evening approached, the group lingered, bonds forged in vulnerability. Eleanor's pen slowed, but her heart raced with renewed purpose. Alex promised visits, mending the broken bridge. Yet, deeper revelations awaited, promising more tears and healing. The cafe had become a sanctuary, time suspended as Eleanor's words wove through the air like threads of a tapestry long hidden. With Alex's daughter Ellie's photo in hand, Eleanor felt a surge of vitality, her story gaining new momentum. Tell me about her, she urged Alex, her eyes sparkling despite the fatigue etching her face. Alex described little Ellie 4 years old, with curls like Eleanor's youth and a curiosity that mirrored her great-grandmother's. She asks about the stars, just like you taught me, he said. Eleanor wrote feverishly, dedicating pages to this unknown legacy. To Ellie, may you dance through life with the freedom I fought for, unburdened by the wars of old. The patrons, now a makeshift family, contributed artifacts: a locket from the young mother, symbolizing enduring love, a war medal from Mr. Jenkins, evoking shared history. Eleanor incorporated them, her narrative expanding to encompass collective experiences. She delved into the 1980s, a time of personal triumph when she volunteered at a hospice, comforting the dying with stories of hope. Death is not the end, she penned. It's a chapter closing, memories eternal. A poignant twist introduced itself through a quiet observer. An elderly man in the corner, silent until now, rose with a cane matching Eleanor's. I knew Harold, he rasped, introducing himself as Sergeant Tom Riley, a fellow soldier. The room gasped. Tom had survived Normandy, carrying Harold's final wishes. He spoke of you every night, Tom revealed, handing over a faded dog tag. This was his mint for you. Eleanor's hands shook as she accepted it, the metal cool against her skin. Tears cascaded. This unexpected witness bridged decades, validating her unspoken grief. Alex supported her, whispering comforts. Tom shared details: Harold's bravery, his last thoughts of Eleanor. He wanted you happy, Tom said. The cafe erupted in empathetic cries, strangers hugging as personal losses surfaced. Inspired, Eleanor wrote of forgiveness, urging readers to release grudges. Time is too precious for bitterness, she noted, glancing at Alex. The businessman, touched, called his distant daughter on speaker, reconciling in real time. Mia penned her first poem on a napkin, reading it aloud to applause. As night fell, the story turned to Eleanor's golden years, the pride in her grandchildren's successes, the quiet activism for elder rights. She described George's final days, holding his hand as he whispered thanks for their life together. Love evolves, she reflected. From passion to companionship, it's the constant thread. Another layer emerged. Mia confessed her grandmother had passed recently, unspoken pain mirroring Eleanor's. Your words heal me, she said. Eleanor embraced her like kin. The teenage girl vowed to interview her grandfather, preserving his legacy. The notepad overflowed, Eleanor dictating now as her hand tired. She chronicled global changes witnessed from moon landings to digital revolutions, marveling at progress while lamenting lost simplicities. In a world of screens, remember human touch, she advised. The gathering shared a meal, the owner providing gratis, toasting to life's fragility. Laughter mingled with tears, catharsis and community. Eleanor felt reborn, her isolation shattered. But the climax loomed, a final revelation poised to unite them all. With the dog tag clutched tightly, Eleanor felt the culmination of her life's mosaic falling into place. Tom, the surprised veteran, settled beside her, adding anecdotes that enriched her tale. Harold saved my life that day, he shared, voice gravelly with age. Pushed me from a grenade his last act. The revelation struck like lightning, reframing Eleanor's grief into profound gratitude. She wrote swiftly, "Heroes aren't just in history books. They're the quiet souls who choose love over self." The café, now dimly lit by string lights, pulsed with raw emotion. Patrons formed a circle, each sharing a piece of their puzzle. The young couple vowed to name their child after Harold if a boy, honoring the legacy. Alex texted his mother, Eleanor's daughter, bridging the family divide with a photo of the scene. "Come home," he urged. Eleanor's final pages poured out the loneliness of aging in a youth-obsessed society, the joy found in small acts like this cafe gathering. "At 88, I thought my story ended," she confessed. "But today, it begins anew through you all." She addressed universal themes, the power of vulnerability, the beauty in impermanence, the necessity of connection. As she finished, Mia read the entire manuscript aloud, her voice steady despite tears. The words resonated, evoking sobs from all reminders of lost loves, forgiven wrongs, cherished memories. The businessman wept openly, admitting his workaholic life had cost him family. The teenage girl hugged her phone, calling her grandfather mid-reading. In a heart-wrenching close, Eleanor revealed her health secret, a recent diagnosis of terminal illness, prompting this urgent outpouring. "I wanted to leave something behind," she whispered. Gasps turned to embraces. Alex held her close, promising to cherish every moment. Tom saluted, a final tribute. The room united in sung-on old wartime tune Harold loved voices blending in harmony. Eleanor smiled through tears, her pen set down, story complete. In that cafe, strangers became kin, bound by one woman's courage. Lives shifted, hearts mended, proving that even at life's end, stories can spark eternal light. The tears were not of sorrow alone, but of profound, shared humanity.